Sleep is for sissies. Jeff Daugherty, Christian Whistleblower, final message of the last apostle. This is really basic training session number 4, and I'm going to be starting as well another series called Create Yourself. Now the basic training series is the basics in what really went on in the New Testament, what really went on with the original Yeshua movement, what really went on with the Christ, what took place in the 1st century A.D., and what the real true faith and teachings of the Christ were and how they have been affected by what we now call modern religion. So basic training will be the nuts and bolts, the doctrine, if you will. And Create Yourself is going to be just like basic training. It's going to be A to Z on how to create yourself and build the life you'll love. From a spiritual standpoint, it's not about get rich quick or business or anything like that. It's a spiritual, how to create the spiritual life and world, create yourself, and build and create the life you'll love. And notice it's create yourself. It's not let somebody else create you. It's create yourself. So that will be starting. Well, sleep is for sissies, so it might be starting after this webcast is made. But the basic training comes out of Final Message of the Last Apostle. It is available for $199 on the website in the ebook format, $24.95 I think it is for the paperback. I mean, compare that to your monthly, I almost said a bad word, compare that to your monthly coffee house habit. Maybe you make some coffee at home for a month and make the investment of getting it. It's really a good book. It's a handsome book. It's a well-made book. It'll take a lot of wear and tear. And if you want me to sign it, just allow a few extra days for delivery. And yeah, but you got to make sure when you order it that you ask me to sign it, because I get it later, and if you say, and then I get the orders on the computer, I fulfill them, and then if I see a note later that says, "Oh, will you please sign this?" then I've already fulfilled it. It's already been mailed out. So when you make the order on the website, just say, "Hey, I want you to sign this," and I'll certainly do it. But just understand it'll take a few more days to get to you, because I'll have to have the book sent to me, sign it, and then send the book on to you. I do incur a little bit more postage on that, $3, $4, $5, but it is what it is, and I appreciate you doing what you do. So sorry to that little ramble, but it just kind of lets you know where we're at. It's 2:15 in the morning in Clearwater, Florida, and I'm fired up and ready to go. And it's you guys, you great subscribers, you great sponsors that are driving this. And I'm doing triphasic sleep. That means I sleep in 3 90-minute increments per day, and the rest of the time, boom! That's why we've got over 600 videos now. Literally 2 months ago, we had 300. So we've doubled in 2 months, and that's what sleeping, what's 90 times 3? That's 270 minutes, so that's what, 4 hours or so? 6 times 4 is 24. Yeah, 4.5 hours a day. And I feel great. I feel strong. How do I look? I need to get back out to the beach. I'm all pasty white, but I'll start going to the beach again tomorrow, and we'll get our tan back on. And I'm starting to work out. I'm starting to do yoga. Yoga? Say tan? Yes, I am. And it's just, I want to thank you for doing what you do, for subscribing, for watching. I want to thank those of you that like and share the videos. I get a lot of emails. Hey, I put it on my Facebook. I put it on my Google+. Thank you. And I do want to send a special thank you to those of you that are supporting with financial help through my PayPal and through Patreon. I do greatly prefer the PayPal. It's much easier, and they don't take as much of a chunk as Patreon does. Patreon is okay, but just to let you know, that's why I put preferred PayPal. But sorry about that. I digress. I want to get into the actual real teachings. Whoa, but I'm very excited about the Create Yourself. So basic training and Create Yourself are going to go hand in hand. So let's get into what we're going to get into, and it's not that. Let's get right into the final message of the last apostle. And I know it says alien agenda in the New Testament, and this is supposed to be basic training, and this is only the 4th video, so how can we be talking about alien agenda in the New Testament? Trust me. Just trust me. For more than 20 years, I was licensed with 3 of the largest Pentecostal denominations in the world, which are 3 of the largest Protestant denominations in the world. I'll go ahead and name them: Church of God in Christ, Church of God, Cleveland, Tennessee, Assemblies of God. Now, on my way out, I was also licensed with the Seventh-day Pentecostal Assemblies, and actually the first place I was ever licensed with was called the Evangelical Free Baptist Church. So, now you know that information. And for more than 20 years, I was a licensed minister. I pastored churches, I was a popular conference speaker, preached literally on 5 continents, and in the now 15 years since, almost 16, I've expanded my work and research into the farthest realms of human spirituality. If you've been keeping up with the videos on our YouTube channel, I don't think that you'll have any problem admitting that we do get to the farthest realms of human spirituality. I've read the Bible from cover to cover over 100 times. I have literally over 100,000 hours of research within the biblical text. And after all that reading and all that time, I was opposed strongly to the idea of aliens in the Bible, especially aliens in the New Testament. I thought it was stupid. I thought it was ridiculous. I didn't think it was at all possible that it was possible. And you might note this was after I'd already come out of the church. So if you think, my friends, if you get to that point where you say, oh man, I finally got it, beware, because you don't. When you think you know it all, that's when you really got to bear down and start studying again. And it's been my experience where I come out, I think I got it going on, but the more I know, the more I realize I need to know. The more I know, the more I realize there's more to know. So, looking back at this whole thing, I remember my son Joshua, who's a talented researcher and practitioner in his own right. My youngest daughter Sandra, they were watching, things like Coast to Coast. They were staying up all night and listening to Coast AM. I'd get up in the morning to go to work, and they're laying on the couch, having been up, Coast to Coast here is like 1 to 5 a.m., so they're crashed out. I'm like, what do you guys do? Oh, we're listening to Coast, Dad. You got to listen to Coast. I'm not listening to stupid Coast to Coast. Are you crazy? And then they said, well, will you watch this new TV show we've been watching with us? It's called Ancient Aliens. I'm like, I'm not watching Ancient Idiots. That's what I called it, Ancient Idiots. Just not going to do it. Oh, but Dad, it's really good stuff, and it'll help you. You'll understand that there's a lot more things going on than what we think we're going on. And I remember my son was reading Zecharia Sitchin, The 12th Planet, and he was also reading Eric von Daniken, Chariots of the Gods. In fact, there was a guy at work reading this. It's like I couldn't get away from it. Things were talking to me. I guess the universe was talking to me, but I just wouldn't do it. And finally, they got me to sit down and watch Ancient Aliens. And to my surprise, it got my attention. That's in no way, shape, or form endorsing everything that's on Ancient Aliens. A lot of it is silliness, and they're trying to make a TV show, so they try to make, stuff that's going to get ratings. But Ancient Aliens does serve a good purpose in getting people interested, or at least to take a look, like me, at this whole realm that we find ourselves in. And it got my attention, and that led to a few more late nights on my own listening to Coast AM. And I got enough info into me that I could no longer ignore the possibility of aliens in the Bible, and I started to do what I always do. I started to do big research into it. So now, and I wrote this book a few years ago, so now 35 years after my born-again experience in my barracks on McCord Air Force Base in Tacoma, Washington, and about 6 years, 7 years, really. It's been like 7 years. Wow. So I've been in this thing now for about 8 years or so, 7, 8 years. So I started to look, I started to study, and after really digging into it, I stand convinced that there's a UFO, ET, alien agenda running throughout the New Testament. And I'm now a regular guest on Coast to Coast AM. How things change. But I say this, and we're like, well, Jeff, this is basic training. Why are we talking about aliens in the New Testament? Because if you're going to understand the New Testament, you have to understand that there is a UFO, ET, alien agenda woven into the pages of the New Testament, and especially concerned, in fact, exclusively concerned, can you tell I'm fired up, with the major events in the life of Plastic Jesus. And we'll get to why I call him Plastic Jesus. And with due respect to Josh, Sandra, Sitchin, Van Daniken, Nori, Bell, it was the writings of the New Testament that convinced me. And once I saw it, I was struck. I really was. I'm like, I can't believe this. The UFO, ET, alien agenda provides an exceedingly durable mythology, not just in the biblical accounts, but in epic literature across every culture. Most scholars have assumed that to the ancients, it was merely a collection of compelling tales of magic and supernatural beings. But now, 21 centuries later, this same imagery takes on new meaning as our knowledge expands, and it remains just as compelling. Now, is it possible, and I sound like Giorgio, is it possible that the ancients knew well what we are only now beginning to discover? And is this part of a diabolical delusion, the product of advanced minds with eons of experience observing and molding human behavior? Is the UFO, ET, alien agenda in the New Testament part of a plan, part of an ultimate end game that's targeted at us today? Absolutely. And in basic training, it's important that you know that and understand that. Because my research has led me to identify, well, it's led me to question if beings that we identify generally as aliens have been acting as imposters of the divine, and if they might not be the main inspiration for the majority of the New Testament writings, especially ones that are prophetic. I know that's a huge statement. The original authors wrote and described what they were shown in the context and reference of their day. Now, we've just assumed that they were shown things that were inexplicable to them and for which they had no reference. And now it's time for us to recognize the symbolism, begin to see how deep and wide that alien agenda runs throughout the New Testament and epic literature worldwide. We may have been very wrong in the assumption that, it was magic and hocus pocus. And our arrogance may be fueling our own indoctrination, and it hid the fact that we are actually a target audience of an ancient agenda. Now, again, this doesn't mean there's no true divine inspiration in the New Testament. I believe that the New Testament, the Greek scriptures as I now call them, is a great source of study for those people that are seeking spiritual development. I also believe it's probably only 25% diamond and the rest of it is dung. And it's a program of propaganda that has been laid out almost to perfection, but they didn't count on you and I. They didn't count on the Christian whistleblower. They didn't count on us discovering the true meaning of the final message of the last apostle. And we're going to press on with pride here for a few more minutes. I know that most people want these to be short, quick hitters. We won't go more than half an hour. I promise you. This is basic training section number 4. Now, let's look at these aliens. There's a wealth of information available about aliens and ETs. And I don't pretend to be an expert. I don't pretend to offer, the last word in all this. I do believe that many of the events that get described as UFO, ET, alien are terrestrial in origin, whether it's secret space program, whether it's advanced aircraft, whether it's just different types of anomalies, and we have to figure in the hoaxes. And it is within the realm of possibility that governments and organizations can have and will continue to produce events by use of secret technology. and that these events are sold to us either overtly or covertly as extraterrestrial in origin. Now it seems to be three basic schools of thoughts about the aliens. Some people think that they're, actual extraterrestrial beings from distant galaxies using advanced propulsion systems to get to us. Others see the aliens as interdimensional beings that come here by some type of science allowing them to fold or bend space to phase through dimensions and time itself. And then there's others that classify everything alien as demonic. And there's also the question about the intention of the aliens. Some people think they're uninterested, they just happen by. Some people admit to the real mathematical possibility of intelligent extraterrestrial life. They think that we're kind of a backwater planet. Nobody could be interested in the Earth. We're not that remarkable. And any culture advanced enough to travel those distances or employ that technology would have no reason to be interested in a tiny, forgettable backwater planet in a rather unremarkable solar system. We'd be about as interesting as amoebas in some pond scum to those guys. Now, others think the aliens are highly interested, and for varying reasons. Some think they're benevolent, and they're not allowed to interfere with us, kind of like a Star Trek Prime Directive, that they're there to help us from a distance without really making contact. And then you've got the Billy Meyer, the Urantia folks, and they think that the aliens are here to help us, and they're here to help us overtly with overt connection and communication. While I leave that as a possibility, I also am very much compelled to say that we must resist the temptation to trade the dictatorial gods and priests of human religion for the lecturing of extraterrestrials who are really little more than the same thing. That would take us from the frying pan to the fire. We have to learn to be our own guru, guide our own spirits, master our own ascension. We need no masters and should accept no masters, terrestrial or extraterrestrial. Now, on the other end, people see these aliens as highly hostile, that they're going to colonize, take over the entire planet. And these are very, very enthusiastic people. And my question is, and it tends to be either or. If you don't believe they're demons, then I'm not going to talk to you. But if you don't believe they're extraterrestrial from other dimensions, I'm not going to talk to you. If you don't believe they're from other star systems, do we really know enough about this subject to exclude anything? I think we ought to be open to each other and open to discussion about different possibilities. One thing does seem pretty clear to me, like Fox Mulder said, something's out there. Who, what, where? I don't know. But according to Dr. Melvin Calvin of the Department of Chemistry at University of California, Berkeley, there's 100 million planets in the visible universe with conditions like those on Earth. Wow. The U.S. Air Force, which I was in for 6 years, cataloged between 47 and 69, 13,000 reports of UFOs. 700 remain unidentified. President Jimmy Carter, 1976, talking about seeing aliens. So we're not sure what it is, but I think we should keep our lines of communication open, and we should begin to look at what grows and grows by the day. And somehow we've known it since we're children. Dragons do exist. Who they are, where they come from, well, we're not quite sure. But let's get to the nitty-gritty of this. This really comes down to the Christ and the alien agenda. Now, I do believe the message of the Christ to be the way, the truth, and the life. Now, my position is not really that exclusive. What I mean is that the Christ came to bring us. And when you read in the scriptures, I am the way, I am the truth, I'm the life, no one comes to the Father but by me, we're pitched that that's very exclusive. But what the Greek really says is the Christ saying, I've brought to you the best of all the ways of human spirituality. I've brought to you the best of all the truths of human spirituality, so you can put those together and live a life. You can create yourself and live a life you'll love, recognizing the divinity within you and growing and developing that. I believe the message of the Christ represents the pinnacle of human spirituality, and it's a message I myself endeavor to follow. And I believe that the message of the Christ has been usurped by the message of plastic Jesus. And the message of plastic Jesus is co-opted thoroughly by the UFO ET alien agenda. That's why it's at the beginning of basic training. And the most glaring aspect of the alien agenda in the New Testament is that it is closely aligned with the monumental happenings in the life of Jesus. Upon examination, we will see that the greatest concentration of alien imagery surrounds events that directly and intimately involved Jesus himself. In fact, there is no alien imagery, listen to that, no alien imagery in the New Testament that does not directly relate to the major events in the life of Jesus. The extraterrestrial agenda has linked itself to the life. The extraterrestrial agenda has linked itself to Jesus. And that can't be denied upon further study. And remember, Jesus is plastic Jesus. And we'll get into who that is and what that means later. Now, this is very interesting to me. And now we're back into regular basic training, okay? So if the ET part gives you problems, aliens, UFOs, we're past all that. Relax. For now. The ignored babe of Bethlehem. One of the supremely odd facts about the New Testament is that only 2 of the Gospels mention the birth of Jesus. Now, I'm going to stop doing this. I know I'm too OCD, and this is the last time I'll do it live and make you watch me do it. Only 2 of the 4 Gospels mention the birth of Jesus, and even then, they mention it only with striking brevity. Matthew, 20 verses. Luke, 33. Now, think about this. There's 8,000 verses in the New Testament. 8,000. And only 53 of them are devoted to the birth of Jesus. Isn't the birth of Jesus a pretty big deal in the New Testament? Some would say it is the central big deal. But only, and I think this is interesting, look at this number, 0.00666% of the verses of the entire New Testament are devoted to the birth of Jesus. That's weird. And my experience with my over 100,000 hours of studying the Bible is when anything is weird and jarring like that, you need to take a closer look into it. And let's do just that. Basic training, section 4, and we're going to stay under 30 minutes. When his mother Mary was espoused to Joseph before they came together, she was found with child of the Lord. Matthew chapter 1. So during her engagement to Joseph, Mary got pregnant. And it's almost remarkable to the point of disbelief, that that's really all Matthew had to say about the Son of God, the birth of the purported Son of God. So she was found with child of the Lord. Now, when you break this down into the original Greek, it just becomes strange, bizarre, eerie, weird, scary. Because look what it says in the original Greek. She discovered that she was holding in her womb something from the Lord. She discovered that she was holding in her womb something from the Lord. The word for baby, not used. The word for infant, not used. The word for child, not used. She was holding something. And that really probably should be something. She was holding in her womb something from the Lord. Why didn't it say baby? Why didn't it say child? Why didn't it say infant? It said thing. Those words were there. Matthew was familiar with them, but he didn't use those words. He said something from the Lord Mary would discover in her womb. And in the 6th month, the angel comes and says, you're going to be blessed. You're going to have a kid. You're going to name him Jesus. The power of the Lord will come upon you. The power of the highest will overshadow you. Therefore, that holy thing again, That holy thing which shall be born of you will be called the Son of the Lord. This was written by Luke. We're now in Luke chapter 1. Luke was a doctor, and he wrote with very exacting language. And look what he wrote. The Greek of thou shalt conceive in thy womb, your womb will be taken hold of or seized. I'm not making it up. That's what the Greek says. Your womb will be taken hold of or seized. And you will bring forth a descendant of the same nature as the Father. Jesus translates to the Lord Yahweh is salvation. Keep that in mind. The Spirit of the Lord will come upon thee. The power of the highest shall overshadow thee. Sounds like a church service. Oh, the Lord is overshadowing me. The power. No, here's what it means in the Greek. You will be overtaken as in an attack. The power, might, and strength of the Lord will envelop and paralyze you. After this, you will discover you're holding in your womb something from the presence of the Lord. So what Dr. Luke is telling us is that a mysterious spiritual entity tells a teenage girl that her womb is going to be seized as she's overtaken and incapacitated from an attack by a power that would completely envelop her. Why is this in basic training? Do you really believe a kind and loving God would use such a dramatic and fearful way to deposit in the womb of a young girl such a thing? Does this sound like the actions of a kind God? Does a loving God take hold of, attack, seize? Does a loving God overwhelm with his power? Does a benevolent deity envelop with debilitating power and deposit something to be held in the womb of a teenage girl? Or is it something else? What if we could step out of our preconditioned, preconceived notions, our first century mindset, and look at it from a cold, objective 21st century perspective? Why did Luke say what he said? Why did he say it the way he said it? Is he trying to show us something? If you look at it objectively, the simple, unavoidable fact is that in modern objective terms, this sounds exactly like a forced artificial insemination during a classic alien abduction scenario. Luke would have been right at home telling Art Bell or George Norrie this story on Coast to Coast AM. I know it's staggering, stunning, mind-blowing, but it's clearly stated in the writings of Matthew and Luke, the only writings of the birth of Jesus in the New Testament, that the Lord perpetrated what we have a very hard time saying was not an alien abduction, artificial insemination by an extraterrestrial. And the holy thing, the thing sacred to someone that will come out of you is going to be called the Son of the Lord, the thing of supernatural origin. The proverbial creepy cherry on top of the Sunday weirdness, Sunday of the supremely strange. It's a thing of supernatural origin, not a child, not a baby, not an infant, but a thing. One thing's for sure. The thing is not of earthly origin. It came from an extraterrestrial. And that will be said to be the Son of the Lord. It doesn't say that it is the Son of the Lord, it says it will be said to be the Son of the Lord. Was the whole Mary scenario, and I've come to understand that the Immaculate Conception means Mary's conception, not this. This would be the virgin birth, or the virgin impregnation, I guess, which sounds counterintuitive, but when you look at it, looks like an extraterrestrial rape. And when you add to the fact that every ancient church, every ancient culture has a God-impregnated, virgin-born Savior, born in mangers, December 25, one has to wonder if this example of the UFO ET alien propaganda has been injected into the New Testament narrative as a, I was going to say plagiarism, but I'll say a copious borrowing from other religious beliefs. What happened here does not square with what we know of the truly divine. So we'll stop there for today. This has been segment number 4 of the basic training. And look at the things we've looked through. We've looked through Chariots of the Gods. We've looked about aliens, 12th planet, ancient aliens, coast to coast. And we're back to all of this compiled within Final Message of the Last Apostle. And it really is the final message of the last apostle. That's why we're using it as basic training. So that's number 4. Let me know what you think. Ask any questions and look for the Create Yourself, which is going to be the sister series, if you will. If you were in college, you would have 2 classes, 2 courses. One would be called Basic Training. The other would be called Create Yourself. They go hand in glove. But probably Basic Training would be a requisite before you could take Create Yourself, or you could take them both simultaneously, but you couldn't take Create Yourself if you hadn't been exposed to Basic Training. So I wonder if I should set that up on the channel, that you can't get to Create Yourself unless you've looked at Basic Training. Now that might be interesting. But I'm Jeffrey Daugherty, the Christian Whistleblower. This basic training series is to help you unwind your mind, to help you undoctrinate yourself, to help you how to learn to be your own guru, guide your own spirit, master your own ascension, and to prepare you for Create Yourself, which will show you how to create yourself and live the life that you'll love. We're trying to get you to be excellent to yourself, fulfilling the first of the great commandments of the Christ. Love the divinity within your heart. Love yourself, then love your neighbor as yourself. And in colloquial terms, we want you to learn how to be excellent to you so we can be excellent to each other.